Go.
Hi.
All right. Well, I think we're ready to get going. Hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Catherine McGee, and this is Skeleton Hour. Skeleton Hour is a monthly horror literature webinar series of the Horror Writers Association, produced in collaboration with the Last Bookstore in downtown Los Angeles. So if you are interested in purchasing books by our authors today, please do so from either the Last Bookstore or a local indie bookstore near you. I'll be putting some links in the chat throughout for books by these authors. And without further ado, I'm excited to announce our topic for today, which is Halloween, and our wonderful moderator, Jessica Guest, the author of Cirque Berserk. And I will hand things off to Jessica now.
Thank you, Catherine. So hi, horror lovers out there. We're all here gathered in the spirit of Halloween, and we have 5 awesome panelists for you today that we're going to talk about horror, Halloween, and all the spooky, scary things in between there. So I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. We're going to start with Lisa.
Hey, everybody. Happy Halloween month, because, hey, it's a whole month, right? I mean, you know. I am the author of 3 books on the history of Halloween, so I am a little bit of an expert on it. I also write screenplays, fiction, other nonfiction. My most recent books are Weird Women, classic supernatural fiction by groundbreaking female writers, 1852 to 1923. I co-edited that with Leslie S. Klinger. And this one that just came out, Calling the Spirits, A History of Seances. And that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Let's go on to Gabino.
I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but I'm here. I don't know. Let me introduce myself. Allow myself to introduce myself. I'm Gabino. Since March, I live on the internet, and I write things and talk to people on Zoom almost every day, and it's fun. Yeah, I'm glad to be here with all of you because I've read all of your work, and I'm reading Lisa's book right now, which I couldn't expect it to be any awesomer than it is. And she kicks it off with dedicated it almost to Becky Spradford, who's a force of nature. So she had me before I even started between the cover and mentioning Becky. So go buy it. I know Catherine's very nice. She's very sweet. And she was like, if you feel, you want to buy, no, go buy some books because you're at home. You're not going anywhere. Support indie bookstores and they'll get you some.
I love that energy. Yes, that's it. All right, moving on, V. Castro.
Oh, hello. I'm V. Castro, Violet. And yeah, so I'm a Mexican-American from Texas originally. I live in London now. And yeah, I like to write, horror that with Chicana or Mexicana leads because, well, we're kind of not really represented. And for me, that's really important. And culturally, Halloween has always been important. We have so many stories and tales. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Switchblade, Hairspray and Switchblades.
Halloween
I have a new one, Goddess of Filth. Stories and tales. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Something's happened. I don't know what happened. It's kind of gone to a black crow on my screen. Anyway, that's who I am.
All right. Thanks, V.
Okay.
And moving on to Rhonda.
Hey, y'all. I'm Rhonda, Texan. I'm sure you figured that out already. I write a lot of stuff, mostly short stories and poems and academic essays. My latest academic essay appeared in the edited collection, The Streaming of Hill House. And my latest short story has appeared in the special Halloween edition of Southwest Review. I'm super excited about that one. Yes, Gabino was the wonderful editor of that collection. And so, yeah, and I also have a poem coming out in the HWA Poetry Showcase. I think it's the 7th edition now. So yeah, lots of small things. I'm trying to work my way up to bigger pieces, right?
All right, thank you. And Greg.
Hi everyone, it's spooky season. I'm coming to you live from Australia, where it's just after 6 a.m. But look, I'm normally up at this hour, writing, drawing. I just go crazy for October. You know, my most recent work was a little chapbook I decided to put out on a whim called Bleak Precision. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to actually put that together myself. And look, I'm just really excited to be here with everyone talking about Halloween because, you know, it's the best.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that. So kind of going off of that, I kind of wanted to start by asking, we're all horror writers, right? And we all have some kind of love for horror and Halloween, but what does the holiday mean for you personally? And that's a question for the entire panel. So what does Halloween mean for you personally? Let's start with V.
Okay, because I was ready. I love Halloween. Since I was a child, again, you know, culturally, the supernatural is never very far. It was always there. La Lechuza, La Llorona, you know, sugar skulls every year. It was an integral part of life. And so Halloween, it was just kind of a time to just let it go. You could do what you want, be what you want, and it was fun. And again, there's that part of me that always believes, you know, kind of, you know, people really believe in Santa. I always believed in ghosts and brujas and creatures, and so Halloween is just you know, part of that belief, and so it's important to me, and it's important to share it because it's more than just scary movies and slashers, and I think it helps people. It helped me deal with real life horrors, and especially things like death and trauma. Um, so yeah, Halloween is just kind of a beautiful time of the year for me because it's a greater expression of what I grew up believing and still believe. That's it.
Wow. Lisa, do you want to go?
Well, of course, I have probably the weirdest answer to this question because it's also my business at this point. But I will say that one of the things I do love about it is the history. I never stop researching it. I'm always finding out interesting new tidbits. I just love that about it. I also love the way the holiday continually remakes itself. This year, of course, we are living in the middle of what it could be a massive remaking of the holiday, and that makes it exciting for the history as well. I think there are some permanent changes that are going to come out of it this year, which we can talk about later on. But for me, like I said, I just love that sense of history and that goes with it.
Yeah, definitely. Greg?
Yeah, well, I guess being in Australia where Halloween wasn't really ever embraced, I sort of saw myself as a bit of an outsider, and it was something that I lived Halloween vicariously, I guess, seeing it coming out of America and Europe, and it's just something that's a creative outlet for me. I just, like I said, I go a bit crazy, and I just pick up a pen or a paintbrush and just go nuts and paint lots of different things around Halloween. It's a special time of year. I guess it's my Christmas, and I love it. And for me, though, I think what Violet said about connecting with trauma and death, and thinking about that at this time of year, and also reflecting on loved ones that you may have lost. I think there's also an aspect to that as well, like a remembrance. So yeah, but Halloween is just a really great time for me to get creative.
Great. Rhonda?
Well, to kind of piggyback off what Greg said, I've always seen October and Halloween as sort of this time of reflection, just like autumn. When I was a kid, I grew up in a Southern Baptist family. And so needless to say, Halloween just kind of wasn't a thing. Plus my parents were super paranoid in the 70s and 80s. They wouldn't let us go trick-or-treating. So for me, Halloween was always one of those, when I get to be grown and I get my own house, and this is what I'm gonna do kind of things. And that is what I totally did. So now what Halloween means for me is the time of year when my regular home decor, which you guys see examples of here, in the autumnal kind of, decor, coloring. It's when I don't stand out so much for my weird. Not that I care that much, but this is the time when everybody else kind of goes, oh, that's a great little wreath you have there. Oh, we didn't know it was up year round, right? So it kind of just means reflecting and kind of embracing that which is the most genuine for me.
Right, awesome. And Gabino.
Favorite time of the year, of course, and I think that goes for all of us here. Lisa sort of exemplifies one path, right? I think all of us at some point, probably during childhood, except poor Rhonda, we got hooked on it. And then obviously we went and we researched, the historical background, and then the religious stuff, and then the cultural implications, and then for those of us who are Latinx or Latinos, it meant one thing. And then if we moved to the US, it started meaning a different thing, but it was always there. So for us, January 1st is about bats and skulls and death and ghosts and witches and werewolves. But then Halloween or the whole month of October rolls around. And when I walk outside of the house, the entire street is decorated like the inside of my house. And that makes me feel very nice. That makes me feel like it's everybody's on the same wavelength. It's everybody who doesn't watch horror movies the rest of the year. They're asking you for questions that time of year. So you're pushing movies and books on them. Like, all right, if you're only going to read 31 books this year and they're horror, this is what you need to read. So it's kind of like I see fall is like a thing, but for me, it's Halloween is the real thing that sort of changes the entire season. I know the turkey's coming at some point, but I don't care. Or Christmas or whatever you want to do. Those skeletons are still going to be up in my house by Christmas time. But this whole month is like we're going to collectively come together. We're going to have chats like this. It's that one time of the year where we get together to celebrate this. And we're all just kids still celebrating it, writing it, studying it, and just hooked on it. So I love it. 31 days of pure horror love.
Yeah, this is the time of year I think where we all kind of just come alive, right? And we're like,
Absolutely.
It's like this is the time where we're the cool kids, like you said. We're coming with, what horror movies do you want to recommend, or what books do you want to recommend, or something like that. And one thing, though, I think that, and we've all kind of touched on that, but Lisa, I wanted to defer to you because your book, Trick or Treat, The History of Halloween, it talks about the historical and cultural significance of the holiday and like how it came to be from different holidays in the past. So I kind of want to ask you if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of written 3 books about that, but I can talk a little about some of the background. It's interesting. There is a debate that kind of goes on in Halloween academic circles about whether the holiday really stems more from the Celtic Samhain or the Catholic All Saints Day. I definitely fall into the former camp. I think there's no question that Samhain is the great granddaddy of Halloween. I think that is why it is a macabre holiday, because for the Celts, it was their New Year's celebration. It was that time when one year became another, and they thought that the veil between years was at its thinnest. And because of that, it was the night when things from the other world could cross over into our world. And they believed in some really scary ash fairies. They called them the Sidhe. The Sidhe could cross over on Samhain night. They could light the palace on fire. They could bring a corpse back to life. I mean, they were really terrifying things. And I think it's fairly obvious that that's where the macabre side of Halloween comes from, because I don't see a lot of scary stuff in All Saints Day. There is some scare factor to All Souls Day, which was added about 400 years after the Catholic Church moved All Saints Day to November 1st. And on All Souls Day, people would pray for the souls of their loved ones who may be trapped in purgatory. So there was a little bit of scary stuff on All Souls Day, but I really fall into the camp that thinks that that macabre edge comes from the ancient Celts.
Okay, all right. And what about culturally for anyone else? I think V, you kind of touched on it a little bit, what it meant for you, what this time of year meant for you. So if you wanted to add more to that, or if anyone else wanted to talk about the culture of what like it might have looked like in your house or in your own, like, I don't know, your how does Halloween look culturally for you, basically?
Well, if I could just actually add to what Lisa said, I'm like I mentioned, I live in England now, and I'm actually in the Isle of Wight, and I've been to Stonehenge. There's a place here where there's tons of burial grounds, burial mounds, Neolithic sites, and I've been to many of them in England. And there's one here where apparently St. Catherine met with the devil. And I will admit, and maybe this is me just projecting my own personal beliefs, but you get a very strange feeling in these places, and the significance of it. And, I'm here now in the Isle of Wight, and there's nobody there. And you go to these burial mounds, these isolated places with the sky and the earth, and you can just see and feel kind of that charge, that energy. And imagine not having any scientific background, the imagination. And isn't that Halloween? The imagination going to the darkest places you can even imagine to explain that darkness inside. And you go to these Neolithic sites and pagan sites, and you're in awe. You feel it. I can't explain it any other way. But again, maybe that's just me because I'm like weird and I, have those beliefs. But growing up, I had mal de ojo. We've had small jars with oils, lots of plants. It was just something that I grew up all the time. And again, the stories, the folklore, it was never too far away. And it was kind of like, oh, so other people, they enjoy this as well. I'm not so weird. It's just not my culture. And it was great to see that. It was great to see the greater culture kind of embrace that and be excited about skulls and I don't want to say death, but just kind of not feel so afraid of difficult subjects. So yeah, because when you tell someone, like, oh yeah, our friend's a curandera, they're kind of like, a what? And you believe in that stuff, and you get weird looks, but there is a belief. And once again, I've traveled to some of these places, and it's a strange feeling. Even in Mexico, I've been to a place where the Virgin Mary appeared, and a cloak of was filled with roses and an image, and you get a weird feeling. So I have those beliefs, and it's just always been there. I don't know. So
anyone else want to speak to the culture of it? Anything else like that?
sorry, I said too much. I broke the Zoom meeting. Everybody's like, you go, V, you're weird.
No. I get what you're talking about. But I mean, unfortunately for me though, I kind of was more with what Rhonda was talking about, where as much as I love the holiday, my family was really, really Christian. So I didn't get a lot of it growing up. My one cousin took pity on me and would give me candy. But that was it, because I couldn't trick or treat. But that was it. So moving on, Greg, you have both written and illustrated Halloween related stories. I kind of wanted to ask you, what about the holiday inspires your work? Like, what about it like brings out that creativity in you?
I think Halloween itself is like Violet said, it's tapping into that imagination, and your mind just goes to dark places. But I always have a fun aspect in my work, and I just enjoy scaring people, I guess. And I think that's what Halloween's all about, is for me, is giving people a little bit of a fright, but in a fun way. And I think here in Australia, that's what it's only been sort of embraced in the last few decades, but everyone loves dressing up and getting out there and sort of doing their best to scare people. And I always like to do that in my work too. I want to give people a really good scare, and I follow that sort of route with my drawing, my writing, and I think Halloween is so cool. I've never actually been in the States and experienced Halloween over there, and I hope to one day. But over here, I've sort of set up a bit of a street where a lot of houses sort of do a trick or treating and decorate their yards, and we've had over 1,000 people come through the street trick or treating over the last few years, and people just love it. I think I love hearing it sounds a bit strange, but when you hear people scream at some of the stuff that's in my front yard, I just think that's a complete win. And I think, yeah, this is great. I've put all this effort into these zombies and headstones, and when people scream at them, I know that I've done something good, and my whole family gets involved and helps me out making things, and it's just so much fun.
I think that's one of the best parts of Halloween is like you get to do stuff like that. You're not looked at like a weirdo. Like I put this out here to
I'm sure they still look at me like I'm a weirdo, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So, and this question is for everyone, but because of what we're going through now with the pandemic, Halloween's going to look a little different this year. So, I kind of wanted to know what you guys think about that. Like, do you think that Halloween can be canceled this year? Do you think that we're going to find some new ways to celebrate? How do you think it's going to change, basically?
I'll talk a little about that right off the bat, because I love the fact that here in LA, the county tried to ban the holiday for about 8 hours. Then they had to move from no trick-or-treating to, well, it's not recommended, because the outcry was tremendous. It's something that people are willing to modify but not give up, and it really is not that incredibly difficult, I think, to modify trick-or-treat for this year. And what I find more interesting and what I think is going to be permanent is the chain haunted attractions. When the pandemic started back in March, I started thinking already, I wonder what this is going to do to haunted attractions. And I made a wrong prediction at that time. I thought they'd go virtual. Instead, they're doing drive-through things. I don't know if that's happening in any of your areas. Here in LA, we must have 20 drive-through haunted attractions, pro level stuff, and some amateur level too. And I suspect that may pay off in a permanent thing. I'm guessing that by the time the pandemic is past and we're up to our next Halloween, we'll get a mix of walk-through and drive-through, because I bet a lot of families will like the idea of being able to put the kids into the car and drive them through a haunted attraction. I think that will end up being something that hangs around. Beyond that, I'm hoping it doesn't damage trick-or-treat haunters. We do a very smart yard haunt at our house, and I watch what the other local haunters are doing. It's been a mix of people canceling and people rearranging, and again, that could be something that becomes a little bit more permanent. People rearranging their yards and their yard displays more to be visible from the street. So it's going to be interesting to see what Halloween 2021 is like.
Yeah, similar here in Australia. So there's a bit of a Facebook group for our street, and there's lots of discussion about, should they trick or treat or not. And I said earlier before this started that we're a bit undecided here, but I'm glad that people are sort of thinking about it and being responsible. we don't have COVID here in this town, but there's always that risk. So, but like Lisa says, I think there will be some changes to come, especially in the States.
Well, here in London, we've just hit a new lockdown, so people from different families are not allowed to mix. So trick-or-treating is definitely off. So yeah, it's just going to be my family. I have a ton of stuff with the kids. I'm making a brain cake. And just I have my altar. We're going to start making stuff for Dia de los Muertos and just things at home. But yeah, it's we're in another lockdown, so there's not really much we can do. There's a drive-in at one of the big theme parks, but again, it's it's been very clear we cannot mix. So whether people do, but they have really steep fines actually, and the police are everywhere in London. So yeah, they're enforcing the rules, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, they're enforcing these rules because it's important, but unfortunately, Halloween is, not happening here.
So
But it's a
V's
state of
cake
mind.
has more brains than our entire government. Here are some things that I've heard.
It's gonna taste good too.
Right. I've heard 3 different ideas just in the past week. Number 1 is everybody buys candy and you donate it to a place, and then they're going to prepare these huge bags for kids and set them up in Mueller at a park, so that kids can go one at a time and pick up a bag, and then socially distanced families will be around the park, and then everybody gets to see the costumes as each child or family goes to pick that up. The second one that I heard was people are going to throw candy, which I'm all for it. I know it sounds, I'm all for it. Just like throwing candy. I'll have like my soft candy for some people and my Jolly Ranchers for other people. And last but not least, I heard outside your house, you'll just leave candy and trust people not to be douchebags, and then put a little bit of hand sanitizer next to it so that people can just at their own pace walk by. You can see them from afar. They can pick up a little bit of candy, clean their hands, and move on. So as long as people start to behave and be a little bit responsible, I think whichever one of those would work. And I hope at least one of those eventually happens, because it'd be painful to see it die for us and also for the kids. So hopefully one of those takes off.
Yeah, the drive-through haunted house is a thing that one of my 16-year-olds has been pushing so hard over here, which I actually kind of like that. I don't like the idea of sending my teenagers out to any of these things anyway. So they don't know it, but even if there wasn't a pandemic, they wouldn't have been going to the walkthrough haunted houses. So I kind of got saved. I got a little kind of rescued there. But the drive-through ones, especially for the reasons that Lisa mentioned. I mean, I have a whole passel of kids, like just a whole trough of them. And so the idea of all of us getting in the van together all at one time and driving through one of these attractions is really cool. I like that idea because a couple of my kids don't embrace the horror stuff. And so if they want to kind of burrow under a blanket, they can do that. And the ones that do, well, we can all just enjoy. But things are definitely different. Most of the kids in our subdivision are my kids' age. And so they're teenagers. All they wanted to do was go be rowdy up and down the road anyway. And so I'm pretty sure from the rumblings I'm hearing from the other parents, we just won't be doing that. I will probably end up robbing mine with candy once again. Just let them have as much as they want. We'll stay in, turn off the porch light, watch scary movies, but things are different. Things feel different. And I do hope that some of these things stay, but I hope that trick-or-treating is not dead forever.
Yeah.
I'm also doing a pukey pumpkin nacho bar. So I carved the pumpkin and I put the guacamole. I put the guacamole out of the mouth of the pumpkin, and then put the nachos out and then all the like toppings, and then my kids just put whatever they want.
You'll have to share the recipes,
Nachos.
Violet.
Oh, you just put the guacamole all over the mouth of the carved pumpkin. It looks awesome. Put some chopped tomato and onion to make it chunky, and then you really, the boys love it. They're like, yes.
You gotta post pictures. Post pictures too.
Oh, I am gonna be like on Insta, because we ain't going nowhere. No one's knocking on my door. I'll be on like Instagram. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's awesome. So Rhonda, I wanted to turn to you because in your author bio, it says that you like writing academically about horror and Black femininity. And I wanted to know, like, is there anything about Halloween that inspires those aspects in you that like maybe gets the creative juices flowing, or, you know, can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, you know, we already talked about how I grew up in this Southern Baptist family. I spent a lot of time up on the altar being prayed for. Please pray for this child. She's just got these dark thoughts and why does she want to write this stuff? So, you know, needless to say, I've always embraced that darkness. I was always that kid too, though, that had all these questions like, why this, why that? Why do we talk about, you know, spirits in church, but when I talk about them outside of here, y'all get to looking all funny, right? And so I think that as I grew up, more of my beliefs were around the understanding that there are things that we can't explain. There are things that there are things that root us, that kind of ground us, right? And some of this is what we find in this spirit of Halloween, especially when it comes to Black femininity, Black womanhood. There has always been that Black woman in the hood, you know, on the corner, where we all knew that she was a healer. Right. And or we know those older Black women that have this connection to, they always have had medicines, natural herbs. Here in my house, we don't call it necessarily an altar, but we have areas on our wall for our beloveds, right? They're our beloved ancestors that aren't here anymore. And so I think that those are things that kind of ground us culturally that I didn't get to learn about when I was a kid. But, you know, as I got to be an adult, I'm kind of going, so there's reasons for these things. There's reasons why I walk through a graveyard and I have these feelings like V says, right? You know, I have these, you know, there's something, I know that there's something we're trying to communicate with, right? And so I think that those are the ideas that kind of help me in my writing, especially about Black women, because again, we have always been very spiritual. I find that to be kind of in conflict with the way that I was raised, right? But isn't that sort of critical thinking and growing outside of your home, your comfort zone, you start to learn about other things. And so I think that that's one thing about this time of year that kind of helps me a lot. It's very inspiring, is understanding that when we talk about things like voodoo or Santeria and, you know, our ancestors and paying homage, these are things that Black women have done for years and years and years. And so I think I would be remiss if I didn't study and also pay homage to these things myself.
Yes, I agree 100%. You know, I've been same with you know, culturally, for me, the same thing, Rhonda, because you have curanderas back, they were midwives. They were the ones that they're helping with coughs, with just ailments, by knowing the plants, being in touch with the earth and being able to help others, but also have that generational knowledge, that innate, and there is, you know, we talk about generational trauma, we talk about generational knowledge. I believe it's really, it's real. And, you know, to have that, I mean, Rhonda, I could not agree more. And you feel that. And when you get in touch with that, it's quite special. And, you know, Halloween is a time where you can be a little more open about it and really feel it. So, yeah, I agree with you, Rhonda.
Yeah. Kind of pivoting a little bit here, I wanted to ask Gabino, I know that you edited the Halloween themed issue of the Southwest Review. And so you were looking at a lot of like different stories. So I kind of wanted to know, was there anything interesting that you noticed about how different writers approached writing about Halloween?
I read around 220 stories for that issue. And now I'm reading, in the process of reading about 700 for Pank Magazine's Hauntings, which we're running all month.
Wow.
It's really awesome to see that we've moved away from cliches. I just read an essay about a woman who's haunted by an ex, and the guy's alive, and it's the memories of that ex that are haunting her. I read another story about a ghost trapped in a house that's just incredibly depressed, and the ghost is looking out, and there's somebody trying to buy the house, and the ghost isn't angry. They're just like, I see the ghost in you, just come in here so we can spend some time together. So the best thing that came out of reading, I guess when I'm done reading, it'll be like 900 horror stories in the span of 3 months. Just horror is incredibly diverse nowadays. It's so alive. And yes, you get stories about, there's a dead baby crying in the next room, and my neighbor is a werewolf, and you get all those stories still, but we're redefining horror. It's like, I'm a woman, and for me to get up in the morning and walk out the door, that's horror. Like, I know what I'm going to face at the office. That's horror. I'm poor, and not being able to feed my kids scares me to death. And I think we're writing more about that type of horror nowadays. So you get all of it. It's this gigantic mixed bowl of stories. And also no themes came up. Everybody's doing their own thing. I think maybe because we're locked up, herd mentality has sort of gone away a little bit, and we're forced to be unique. So yeah, it's awesome. I'm just getting an idea for a story right now, because Rhonda's family apparently loved her more than my family loved me, because they took me to church one time and they said sometimes the devil wins, and then they gave up. So I feel like I need to tell that story now. So yeah, see, it keeps coming. It keeps coming all the time. So yeah, but check out Pank Hauntings. The first thing that we published was about it's a nonfiction piece from a woman, and I'm blanking on her name because 700 stories, but it's about rats. She lives in a farm and she gets invaded by rats, and how she deals with that, and how it affects her life. And we published that last week, so go check them out. And that issue of the Southwest Review is absolutely amazing. Rhonda is in there. We have news stories by Brian Evanson, Paul Tremblay. Who else is in there? Cynthia Pelayo. It's an incredible tome. So go check it out. And it has a mask by the same artist who did the cover that you can pull out of the bag, and then you have your costume all sorted.
So cool. That's so many stories. My goodness. Like I'm just like imagining all these like images that were coming at you. But yeah, your family not trying anymore. Maybe they're just like, oh, he needs like an exorcism, or like we need to do a seance or something. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to segue back to Lisa. So you mentioned your book that is about seances. Could you talk a little bit about that, and like maybe, I don't know, just I kind of was interested when you held up the book.
Yeah, it's as far as I know, the first book that's about the history of seances, and it's kind of like Halloween in that there are many misconceptions about it, which it was really fun to dispel. One of the things that threw me when I started writing the book, I had this notion, like probably many people, that seances go back thousands of years. The whole model of a group of people sitting around a table with a medium calling forth the spirits, that is really quite recent. It started in 1848 with 2 teenage girls near Rochester, New York. Obviously, there is a history of necromancy, which might be the single magician calling a spirit, or the single bereaved person who goes to a grave and performs a ritual. But that model of people gathering and sitting around a table is recent. One of the other misconceptions that's fascinating about it, and we get this from horror movies, We watch horror movies where seances are always terrifying things and terrible things happen to people and everyone is frightened. The actual Victorian spiritualist style seance was more like a party. It was like one part party, one part revivalist meeting. They sang songs. They came away and said, I had such a great time. I mean, they were really interesting. And they, one of the big questions for me was the fact that so many of the mediums in those circles were frauds. They were repeatedly debunked, and yet they remained sort of superstars of that world. The way that the spiritualist would explain away the debunkings is sometimes head twisting. I mean, the logic is just like, what the hell was that? It's fascinating. The whole thing turned out to be actually way more incredibly interesting than I expected when I started writing it. I also got to dig out lots of incredibly juicy scandals and sordid details among the spiritualists in the 19th century. And you bet I included those in the book.
Okay, great. So I don't know, that makes me think about like how, especially this time of year, but it's almost like we're drawn to getting together and either having a Halloween party or a seance. Cause like you're saying, these people were debunked, but yet people kept inviting them back. It's almost just like we want a reason to get together and like do spooky stuff at least once a year for some people. For us, probably more than once a year, right?
I just want to party.
Yeah.
Exactly. You just want to party with ghosts and stuff. So I guess I kind of wanted to ask, like, for you guys, what do you think you're gonna? Well, some of you already answered this, like V, but do you think that this year you'll try and do something virtual, or do you think you're just gonna like spend it with your families, like Halloween? I mean.
We're doing our yard haunt that we always do. For one thing, my partner this is his first year being retired. So he's been like planning it for ages. And we talked about it early on and we decided to do some of that rearranging so that it can all be enjoyed from the street. We are going to do the thing where we're going to put a bowl of candy on the other side of our little fenced off front yard. If kids come by, we want them to take the candy. It's great. And we mainly do it because we love doing it. We love looking at our yard transformed for a few weekends every time this year. And I don't know, we're trying to figure out if we can actually stream it Halloween night. It would be really fun to live stream it Halloween night and maybe give people even around the world something to enjoy from it too. I don't know. We're not sure yet if that's going to be practical with what we have here or not, but we're going to try.
Yeah, similar here. I'm going to see if I might be able to do a bit of a live stream or at least film it. I usually set up a camera and do a bit of a time lapse to show everyone coming by so we can enjoy it later on.
Awesome.
I'm going to do my usual, which is you have usually two types of people during Halloween night. Those who turn off all the lights and try to hide away and ignore all the sounds, and those who are always at the front door. So it's a great night to break into houses. So that's what I do almost every year, and that's what I'm going to be doing this year as well. So wish me luck. Maybe I'll bring you something, maybe some jewelry or something.
Okay, and another question I wanted to ask was, and this is for everyone, do you guys have any like real life horror stories? I mean, I know we're all, fiction writers, some of us, more historical or academic, but do you have any real life horror stories, Halloween related or not, that you want to share?
I think I touched on it before, going to a lot of these old, supposedly haunted places in England. Not really, but there are some. So if you just do a Google search on most haunted places England, you're just like, you can scroll for days. But there was one in particular, Bletchford Castle, and I was with my youngest, and we were fine. It's right next to, it's in ruins actually. It's more ruins, and it's right next to a golf course, and there were only like maybe 2 golfers. And we got closer and closer, and my child, who was fine, just started to cry and get really upset and cry uncontrollably. And I just was like, well, come on, you know, it's just right there. You love the forest, you love, and I mean, just she was not having it. It was really quite, I was a little concerned, like, what is going on? But she just was not having it. She just like that. So I just had a quick walk around. It's quite creepy. On my Instagram, I have loads of photos of these places because I was going to them regularly. I wanted to see all the haunted places. And that was probably the creepiest, besides these other Neolithic sites I've been to, where you just get these kind of weird feelings with these huge stones and mounds where there are people are buried there. Yeah, the Tower of London is quite creepy as well. I mean, but yeah, there's some interesting places around here. The other place that was really scary in Belgium, I went to World War I trenches, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. I had to get out of there. It was just too, I don't know if it was the history. It was so claustrophobic, and then they have the very short, squat concrete buildings where they would go in, and you just look, it's just pitch dark, full of spider webs, and I just could not imagine it. Pouring rain, mud, and it was just, the idea of it was quite spooky. But those are just my experiences. So again, is it me, or and the knowledge I know of these places, or something really there?
Yeah, and I don't know that I would call this a horror story, simply because my husband, we match very well together because we do believe in these things. But here in our own home, last Sunday, I had a handyman here. We're having the house painted, and so we had taken down all the pictures. I had him putting the pictures back up. Well, my husband, I had just gotten a hold of a picture of his grandfather and grandmother. And so I put the picture in a frame and I handed it off to the handyman. And so he hangs it on the wall. Well, then we hear this kind of tiny little crash sort of thing. And we go and look, and the picture's on the floor. Well, I look at it and I go, oh, okay, frame is broken. The glass was totally intact. And our ceilings have to be, oh gosh, that was hung up at least 15 feet. Our floor is ceramic tile. That glass should have been broken, right? So I look at it, I kind of go, okay, beloveds, you might not have liked that frame, maybe.
They're telling you different color.
So I go and I get a different frame, right? And I say, okay, we're gonna try this frame. He gets the frame hung on the wall, and all of a sudden I see this crack in the glass that was not there. The crack was not there when I was putting the picture in. The crack was not there as he was hanging it. And I said, okay, beloveds, maybe one more try. I took the glass that didn't break from the first frame and put it in a different frame, and it wouldn't fit. So I say to them, beloveds, I will go get a different frame. And also, so today I had a different frame. I let it sit out for a week. If you don't like this one, let me know. Handyman comes back today. And I say to him, I don't think I like that spot. We had them between his mother and then his mother and her mother and sister. And I said, can we just kind of put it to the side, sort of? I like that balance a little better. It feels better. So then my husband comes out, the picture's up there. It stayed. He says to me, that picture, did you have, because he works on the road all week, did you have that between the other two? I said, yeah, that's where he put it at first. He said, well, you couldn't do that. He says, that's my grandfather's second wife. And so she and the first wife never got along. And I go,
that is amazing.
You could have told me. I said, you could have
That
told
is
me,
awesome.
and we could have prevented all of this, but you let them have to tell me on their own. And so now I'm looking at him upside his head, and he is like, I'm sorry, mommy, I could have told you. You could have told me.
It's those strange things that happen, those coincidences where you have to give them another, you have to see them with
Yes.
different eyes.
Oh, of
Mhm.
course. And they were telling me, and the energy. I'm just glad that I was open to it because, man, we could have like ruined a lot of frames. And I insisted on putting them the same way, right?
Mm.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we're getting a little bit close to the, oh no, I actually did have one more thing before we open it up to everyone. What are you guys working on now? Writing, illustrating, whatever. What are you doing now? Yeah, I'll just open that up.
Well, if I can go, I know Lisa was talking about seances. I have a book coming out, Goddess of Filth, which Gabino has. And actually, it starts with a seance, but it's about 5 Chicanas in Texas. You know, I'm from Texas. And again, you know, fire, candles, very important culturally, but also like speaking on things. And this isn't about the devil. This isn't about demons. This is about, these women of color finding their power, and they find it with the most unlikely source. So that is the big thing that I'm excited about, because it takes possession and seance to a different place. So that's kind of my next big thing, and that comes out. You can pre-order it March 2021, and then just trying to get bigger manuscripts finished. So unfortunately, I missed the 2 calls for that Gabino's doing. I just got so sidetracked with the other stuff. You can't write it all, damn it.
Yeah.
I need to astral project myself to make all of these these calls that are coming out that are so amazing. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
I'm working on a comic book. I'm actually, when we were in lockdown initially towards the beginning of the year, I decided to do some comics. So I'm on the 2nd issue of a book called Hell Hunter, which sort of has a bit of an Ash vs Evil Dead vibe to it. And yeah, hopefully the 1st issue will be out soon. I haven't done much prose writing apart from a couple of short stories here and there, but yeah, really loving getting back into comics again. I haven't really dipped my toe into that since Witch Hunts, which Lisa would know all about. Yeah, so interested to see what people will think of Hell Hunter when it comes out.
Nice.
What's everyone else working on?
I'm reading a lot of stuff, which gives me from
900 stories.
Yeah.
I'm waiting on Rhonda to finish her collection. What else am I forgetting? Tracy, you came in late. I saw that. I forgot to send a shout out to Tracy Robinson, one of the treasures of horror fiction.
Tracy is amazing.
I actually finished the novel. I'm the slowest writer in the world. Good things are happening with it. There might be an announcement coming at the end of the month, which I'm incredibly excited about because I'm super superstitious. Zero Saints came out on Halloween, so I'm planning a birthday party for that book. And Coyote Songs also came out during October. So, you know, all my books are sort of October babies. So it feels nice. It feels strange and magical to be working on the edits for this next novel during, you know, the beats and pieces of time that I can steal away from everything else during the month of October. So hopefully the next week those edits will be done, and I'll send it back to the editor, and then on to the next thing, because you're only as good as the next one. So gotta keep hustling.
I'm gonna put something on my altar for you, Gabino. You're gonna be on my altar.
Thank you. Burn those candles.
Yes, I've got the perfect 7-day candle.
Rhonda, are you working on anything now?
Well, so I'm working on this story collection that Gabino has single-handedly been like dragging out of me. I mean, I have been so terrified to do something. It just never occurred to me that somebody might want a book with just my stories in it. I know that's weird.
You're
That's
amazing.
weird,
Stop.
right? But I thought, okay, I think I think I can do this. So I've been kind of pulling it together, kind of tweaking it. But Gabino has been a huge inspiration, along this way. So needless to say, there has to be a shout out to him in this thing somewhere, right?
I want to say the inspiration has traveled from, come on, Rhonda, you can do it. We really want to read this.
Yes.
And now we're reaching the point of, I know where you live.
Exactly.
So get it done.
Exactly. Right. He is like, homegirl, I will come get you, right? So there's that. I'm also working on a proposal for an academic book about the depiction of Black women in horror. I mean, and so I think that might be kind of exciting. For an accidental academic, I think that I actually do pretty well there. So I think that that's something that I don't know why it gives me less heebie-jeebies and then the creative writing. I think we talked about this on Twitter the other day. It just seems that I tend to be better at the academic writing. I don't know. It doesn't come without any bouts of anxiety at all, but that's what I'm working on. We'll see if I can get some longer works. I'm like V on this. I need longer stuff.
Lisa?
No,
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, come on, Rhonda, you can do it. You're amazing. I love your fiction. Your fiction's awesome. Don't second, guess yourself. You're amazing.
I'm dying to read everything you guys have talked about. I mean, this all sounds like great stuff. I feel like I'm just working on getting through October at this point. So I think because the pandemic has brought things like Zoom to the forefront, I have never been so inundated with requests for interviews and presentations and panels. And so I'm just trying to keep up with that right now. And then in May of next year, we hope we will have StokerCon, and I will be a guest of honor if it happens. And we will launch a new collection of mine there called Night Terrors and Other Tales. So
nice. Awesome. All right, so I think we're going to take a few questions from the participants. I think if Catherine might come back, I think that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, no. So I've just got a couple. So if anyone wants to add any questions in the Q&A or in the chat, we can talk about those. But there was one earlier on from Lee Murray directed towards Greg, talking about how Halloween isn't really a thing in New Zealand either, Greg. I wonder why New Zealand and Australia haven't really embraced it as a holiday. She's talking about how there's an underlying sense of the Gothic in New Zealand, likely due to our isolation with that sense of danger and death pervading our everyday. What's your take on why Halloween isn't a mainstream event in Australia?
I think there's always been this slogan of an American thing, and that might have been way back when, but now these days, there's a bit of a revival in people having costume parties, and I think Halloween just sort of made sense after a while. And I think now people are just realizing that it's a hell of a lot of fun and an excuse to get out at nighttime and wear your best costume. And yeah, I think there's probably still that sense of not really understanding what the holiday is all about, because it's not really a holiday here either. So I think that basically people just see it as an excuse to go crazy and get dressed and go and eat some candy or lollies, as we call them over here.
I can add a little something to that, which is that we don't see it celebrated in many places in the Southern Hemisphere because it doesn't have that seasonal association.
Yeah, it's usually starting to get hot here as well. So the idea of dressing up probably isn't the best. People don't like the idea of sweating, but that's certainly not the case here in my street, where we see kids and adults of all shapes and sizes just getting dressed up and loving it.
Great, thanks. We have one more question. What is a Halloween tradition that meant a lot to you as a kid but fell away and you would like it to be brought back?
I'm still a big kid. I do it all. Nothing's changed except I can drink wine. But other than that, I am still like, lots of costumes, the food, the fun. Yeah, nothing. Yeah. I'm still a big kid when it comes to Halloween.
Anyone else?
One that I know I'm not, but I'm gonna answer. But it's not really a tradition, but when I was younger, like I said, because I didn't have like my parents wouldn't take me trick or treating. The only thing I really had was what it was either ABC Family or some network used to put on the 30 Days of Halloween, right? And then as I got older, they kept shortening it down until it was the 13 days of Halloween. And then it was just a week. And then it was just like a couple days. I was just like, what's going on here? Like it used to be a whole month. But actually recently I've seen that they've come back with the 30 days of Halloween. And basically it's just every day, all day, they show horror movies. They show like children's horror movies, like, Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't know, like Goosebumps, all that kind of stuff. They interview people, like they would interview like horror directors or R.L. Stein or someone like that. And I always love that because that, like I said, this has always been my time, October, where there was a while where it felt like it was getting cut down shorter and shorter. And now it feels like it's coming back. So.
I've gotten a couple of similar questions about everyone's favorite movie to watch over Halloween or a recent story you've read that you would recommend for the Halloween season.
Oh, wow. I just read this story by Elmarie Wood. I think it's on the HWA website. She shared it on Twitter just the other day, like this little short thing. And when I say it gave me goosebumps, and I was like, oh, like really, like let's just not even mention that the main character in the story talks like me and mine, right? You could tell it was straight out of the country somewhere, Black folks, that kind of thing. And I know she will kill me that I can't remember the name of it, but I know it's on that HWA site somewhere. It's like a first person account of something that happened on Halloween night, and I won't give it away, but that was just brilliant. It was so wonderful, and it was perfect for Halloween.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I always like watching American Werewolf in London. I mean, that's been, as an adult, I watch that regularly. I just love it. There's just, I don't know. I think another thing about Halloween that people enjoy is there's something very alluring about transformation and being able to step outside of yourself and step outside of the mundane, and again reach into that dark creativity that we're often denied in our everyday lives. And you can it's acceptable. You put on a mask, and I guess maybe for some of us that mask is really who we are, but we feel a bit more accepted at that time because that's who you are, and we all wear different masks at different time for different people. So I kind of like that about American Werewolf in London.
I'll mention a documentary which very few people have seen, and I truthfully am not sure if this is streaming anywhere or what, but there's a documentary called Hell House, which is about a Baptist church trying to build their own Hell House for Halloween, and it's illuminating and scary in bizarre ways and incredibly funny. I mean, at one point, one of the volunteers is told to go paint a pentagram on a wall, and he paints a Star of David. It kind of has to be seen to be believed.
Well, Hell House LLC is really scary. The first one. Woo! That is creepy. I like that one.
Yeah, movie I just watched yesterday, just for the heck of it, was Sleepy Hollow. That's always one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
Based on Washington Irving's great story. So it's just total fun. I love it. So I'd recommend that if you haven't seen that before, but I would imagine that there wouldn't be anyone here that hasn't seen that film.
Great. I guess, let's see. It looks like we just have one more question and then we'll wrap up. Now that everything is on Zoom, do you think Halloween has a chance to take over the global culture?
Oh God, I hope so.
Let's make it happen. Let's all just start filming and streaming everything that we're doing for Halloween.
love it. So everyone's leaving today with a directive.
Yep.
Yes. All right. All of my Halloween plans are going to be on Instagram. Done.
Excellent.
I
Let's do it.
think that's it question wise. I'm going to go ahead and repost right now all of the links to works by our authors today. So go buy these books immediately. Do not delay. And thank you all. Thank you, Jessica, for
Thank
moderating
you.
today. And thank you to all of our authors for making yourselves available. This has been
It was
great.
a
Thank you for
blast.
having
Thanks
me.
for the invitation. It was so good seeing everyone. Thank you. And cheers to you. So just so you know, it's like 10 o'clock at night, so this is okay. So cheers to all of you. And, I hope everyone's safe. Blessings at this time of year for all of you and good things.
Yep. Have a great Halloween.
Back at you, V.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy
Happy
Halloween.
Halloween.
Have a good one.
Thank you.